What's up? What's up? What's up? It's your boy Domuto. We're back with another video. Today we're watching Sega Scourge. What if Sonic lost his memory? Finale. Sonic, what if? I know I've been holding off on this one because it's 50 minutes long. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Been very holding off. But yeah, it's time for me to get. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get over with, man. Finale, man. Let me know how y'all feel about this video down below. Like, comment, subscribe. We're gonna get into it, man. Let go.
Calculating composure, the red and black aberrations at his side, Shadow calls out across the expanse, issuing a virulent warning directly to Eggman.
Dr. Eggman, yield now, or fall to the might of Black Shadow.
With a telepathic instruction, Shadow's black-hearted regiment changes formation, and a wave of soldiers march to the front line. Black warriors, black oaks, black assassins, a cornucopia of calamitous creatures hungry for a gruesome battle. By this point, Tails has dropped from his aeronautical position and transformed the Cyclone back into walker mode, using this interlude to help his friends get up and get clear.
Okay.
Now regrouped, Tails leads the battered heroes and retreats to safety behind the rocks on the edges of the battlefield. Silver, despite his injuries, is fidgeting in unease, questioning what the heck Shadow's doing, what the heck he's been doing all this time. He worries over what exactly those monsters are and pores over the possibility that the future's been placed in even more jeopardy now that they're here as well as the androids.
Okay.
While he has reservations, there's little he can do. He and each of them are still run down after their brush with the droids and Sonic himself. It's taken a toll on them, and they need time to recuperate. They're in no condition to fight any farther. All they can do now is trust in Shadow to take it from here, to have faith in him. Meanwhile, Dr. Eggman, still piloting the egg dealer, surveys the rival army, noting them to clearly be extraterrestrial in nature and origin. Though he doesn't grasp the goings-on, nor how these beings amassed from nowhere with Shadow at their helm, none of that matters. Being this close to absolute victory, the Doctor is furled in a neurotic determination. Of course he's not going to surrender. He's going to meet this opposition head-on and roll over it. Sonic, still in the boosted form granted to him by the Chaos Drives, stands aside the egg dealer. His sights are set sturdily on Black Shadow. He frowns. His cyan eyes glow, and bolts of electricity vent from his chaos-imbued body. His stony fixation is a byproduct of Eggman's tampering. If you remember back in Part 2, Sonic was deceived into believing that Shadow had previously defeated him and left him for dead, implying that he's responsible for the Blue Hedgehog's lost memories. As a result of that misinformation, Sonic has a special bone to pick with his dusky doppelganger.
I believe our best bet would be to checkmate their king. I'll scramble the fleet and lay down suppressing fire. Sonic, you go with the androids and cover me while I flank Shadow from the other side of the ravine.
But Sonic chips into Eggman's strategy, outlining his own battle plan. No, I'll take Shadow. He's mine.
Oh, shit.
You and the androids just focus on keeping those things busy. Eggman grins and agrees. He'd only made up his plan knowing that Sonic would deny it and opt to take Shadow head on, just as he'd hoped. With that, Black Shadow watches from afar as Eggman implicitly declines his shouted demands, the androids forming into ranks and falling into line. The impending carnage is inevitable. From both ends, both Shadow and Eggman signal forward, and their forces commence their advance. The beastly black arms make their onrush, charging towards the androids with a series of shrill battle cries. Ahead of them, the unfeeling androids do the same, running at high-octane speeds into their foes. As both sides converge in the center of the canyon, the war of black versus blue begins. In a horrific display of savagery, the two armies pile up and set about tearing into one another. The androids' serrated spin attacks mashing their targets into green goo, the black arms' brute strength and weaponry ripping back in retaliation. As I mentioned earlier, the Sonic androids are very hazardous in large quantities, proving a challenge for even the likes of Knuckles, Silver, Omega, and so on. Whereas one individual black arms warrior has nowhere near that kind of strength. That said, the aliens are rigorous in their own right and equally deadly as a unit, keeping up their attacks despite their consequent losses. For every one android crushed, the androids take 3 of the Black Arms in return. But the Black Horde is far greater in number. The sheer amount of them keeps things on an even keel and keeps the android quantity on a steady decline. As the mass brutally rages on, the Sonic androids kept at bay, Shadow calmly walks through the engagement. Every time an android comes close to him, a member of his Black Army knocks it away. As it turns out, Shadow's strategy closely mirrored Sonic's, using the Black Arms to engage the droids while he handles Sonic. Speaking of whom, Sonic is en route to Shadow, smacking aside the occasional black creature as he approaches. Finally, both he and Shadow meet in the battle's epicenter a few yards from each other, as if to parley during the course of this war. Thereupon, they proceed to talk.
Sonic, listen to me. Whatever the doctor has told you, it's all lies. Let me help you. You're just confused. You don't know who you are.
Sick and tired of hearing the same drivel, the same trite attempts to mess with his head, Shadow's words go in one ear and out the other. Instead, to shut him up, Sonic rashly, almost robotically states his own interpretation of who and what he is. I am Sonic Android, the ultimate battle life form created by Dr. Eggman.
Talk your shit.
I was born to help the Doc save this world and bring its people onto a better path, free of tyrannical lunatics like you. That is who I am. With that declaration, Shadow finally grasps what Sonic has become, how far he's fallen since his fall from the Ark. This is the price of Shadow's continued existence. What Sonic's sacrifice truly meant. The guilt stabs Shadow through his heart, lamenting in his mind that it should have been him who fell instead. But regret won't solve anything now. Only action will. The somber hedgehog unveils the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which he'd acquired in preparation of this event. Sonic, while confused, recognizes the gemstones, having briefly witnessed their power earlier in this What If. The emeralds then begin to orbit around Shadow at a hypnotizing rate. A rising, whirring noise is emitted. Shadow closes his eyes as his spines raise and his body pulses a pale amber. Sonic once again recognizes this. He saw Shadow do this aboard the Final Fortress when he fought Metal Overlord. Realizing the obstacle this could pose to Eggman's initiative, Sonic immediately boosts at Shadow, striving to interrupt him before his transformation can finish. Fortunately, this effort is wholly futile. Before Sonic can make his approach, a ripple of unseen pressure slings him backwards, and a blinding yellow light enshrouds Shadow. Sonic flips to his feet post-haste, dazzled for an instant before readjusting and locking faculties with the divine immortal now hovering over him. Behold, Super Black Shadow! Aside from his doomly attire, his design is near identical to his other appearances, minus a few small mutations. Shadow's eyes have kept their alien orange haze, signifying his coupling to the Black Arm's hive mind. But not only that, the reds of his quills have curved and spiraled into shapes similar to the well-known Shadow symbol. As Shadow levitates suspended in the air right in front of Sonic, the blue hedgehog's eyes fade back to their usual green. Sonic's chaos state fizzles away, as if snuffed out by the opposing polarity of Shadow's super state. With Sonic outmatched, Shadow begins shouting at him, appealing to his heart like Tails and the others tried to do.
Sonic, open your eyes and see. The Ark, the Bio-Lizard, what we fought to achieve. May the power of the Chaos Emeralds help you remember.
This is Shadow's plan. This is the reason he sought after the 7 emeralds in the first place. Shadow is attempting to call upon the emeralds to stir forth Sonic's repressed memories, forcibly bringing him back to his senses. For any IDW fans, this is a little on-the-nose nod to what Blaze did to remedy Sonic's memory loss in issue 32. That said, in the IDW comics, Sonic bided with his amnesia for only a day or so. The condition was very raw and treatable. His surroundings were pleasant and free of stress. But as we know, in this story, it's been quite the opposite. Something tells me it's not going to be that easy here. As Sonic gazes face to face with Shadow's superform, something triggers. The agonizing headaches afflicting him in earlier parts, the headaches he'd worked so hard to tolerate, begin to resurface again. In a flash from the past, Sonic receives a vision he's seen once already, but this time it's clearer than before. Through his own eyes, he sees the Bio-Lizard. He sees his own body aglow in a wash of golden energy, brandishing the same form that Shadow now sports. He sees the two of them floating in tandem, working together to stop the Ark, then becoming trapped in some kind of still white void. With another sting, his sight grows dim as his past self's eyes come to a close, leaving just enough visibility to see himself burning up and falling to an unknown world. Sonic is of course recalling slivers of his sacrifice to stop the Ark and save Shadow, the retold finale of SA2 where this whole what-if began. Although it's trying to come back to him, Sonic still can't comprehend the whole picture. His memories have laid dormant for far too long, and his headaches have only gotten worse the more he's tried to think. Because of this, his mind has formed barricades to avert further trauma, and his previous life is sealed away in a psychological lead bunker. The grievous reverie subsides, and Sonic snaps back to the present. He glares at Shadow as his wrath boils up, using that wrath to assume authority over his head pains once and for all. Those flashbacks should help Sonic realize where his true allegiance lies, right? Well, due to the brainwashing at the hands of Dr. Eggman, our current Sonic sees things in a very different way.
How you see it? How you see it?
We made a truce to stop that monster, to save everyone. But when we did, I fell to that planet. And why was it me instead of you? Oh, I see now. You let me fall. Once my use had ended, you took me out. No, Sonic, that's not what. Shadow is lost for words. So this is what the Doctor has led Sonic to believe. The Blue Hedgehog's thoughts are monopolized by some distorted desire for payback, Shadow being the primary focal point of all that malice. Super Shadow's plan to jolt Sonic's memory has fallen flat. Instead, it spurred the former hero to finally lock up his reason and throw away the key. It's all your fault. It's because of you that I feel so empty. I'll make you pay. I'll make you pay, Shadow. First you, then that fox freak, then the rest of them. This is bad. Sonic's flown off the handle. Shadow contemplates the strenuous circumstances. He doesn't want to come to blows with his misguided friend, but if Sonic refuses to concede, he'll have no choice but to defeat him. However, Shadow's momentary hesitation suddenly revokes any and all possibility of ending things quickly. Due to Sonic's memories unraveling when seeing Super Shadow, a dire phenomenon occurs, something Shadow had failed to anticipate. Without realizing, a pool of energy has started siphoning from Super Shadow, from the Chaos Emeralds, and into Sonic. Without even thinking, the stubborn Sonic is rediscovering his latent potential, unconsciously harnessing the proximate power in an effort to mimic what he's seen in his flashes. With a wave of yellow, Super Sonic has returned. Instantly, his posture switches from mindful defense to aggressive offense. As he lunges from his stationary position, Super Shadow riposts. They ram into each other, skyrocketing vertically high above the battlefield as a shockwave pelts the surrounding black creatures and Sonic androids. Above, as the hedgehogs trade blows, another crackling shockwave reverberates, crippling the last of Eggman's aerial fleet and sending the flagship and the cruisers into an obliterating heap. As if picking up an old knack, Sonic has begun evolving, immediately adjusting, learning and adapting to his super form in no time at all. Dr. Eggman, as well as Tails and the others, watch as the shining hedgehogs rise into the swirling deep red thunderhead, and the tide-turning final act commences. Super Empire Sonic against Super Black Shadow. At the apotheosis of their ascension and the mounting tension of their cutting gazes, suddenly Super Shadow raises his hands into the air above him, materializing a whirling strip of purple light, which gyrates faster and faster into a spinning energy boomerang. A technique originally employed by Black Doom that Black Shadow has reworked into his own.
Chaos? Swift strike!
The rotating amethyst annulus dips down below Shadow and shears through the air like a frisbee before coming into collision with Super Sonic, who fires himself forwards as it grazes against his arms, obstructing his forward flight. With the hedgehog under duress, Shadow follows up the attack, swiping his arms and releasing a hailstorm of chaos spears. The barbed chaotic tempest rains down upon Super Sonic, blasting across his body in bursts of sizzling smoke. The explosive pelting is severe, but with his unremitting persistence, Supersonic manages to weave and deflect the swift strike's cutting edge, throwing it out of the way behind him and elbowing his way through Shadow's barrage. More and more, Sonic comes closer as Shadow continues the bombardment with amplifying ferocity. Now only a few meters from his target, Sonic disentangles himself from the spears, surges forward and comes slamming into Shadow, grappling hold of him and carrying him across the sky. Sunlight returns as the red cloud's edge recedes into the background and the two super hedgehogs soar for miles, far beyond the outskirts of Frontier Canyon, far removed from the war taking place there. They scorch across the heavens, Sonic still seized onto Shadow, propelling him throughout the extent of their entangled combat. They exchange blows to each other's faces as they careen across the planet at blistering speeds. Finally, Shadow begins to pry loose of Sonic's clench and pin his arms apart by the wrists. The two are so embroiled in their fight that they fail to realize that their flight path is slowly arcing lower, and before long, they're nosediving out of the air. It's a peaceful afternoon in a nearby city. On a day like any other, the citizens go about their routines, blissfully unaware that the struggle for their world's future is currently taking place. But amidst the hustle and bustle, two gilded flares come streaming out of the skies above the urban sprawl. Supersonic and Super Shadow spiral downwards, colliding with two skyscrapers before they hit the asphalt, ragdolling in different directions as they scrape along the road and come to a stop. Shadow soon rises from the heaps of heavy rubble and witnesses the civilians fleeing in shock horror as a deluge of glass and cement pours from the buildings overhead. Ahead of him, Sonic also regains his footing and shakes off the rough landing. Feeling the sting of Sonic's crosshairs once again, Super Shadow takes off upwards over the megapolis with his supercharged adversary right on his tail. While it seems like Shadow is attempting a getaway, in actuality, he's shrewdly making a bid to avoid further collateral damage. There's no way he's going to fight Sonic in such a densely populated area, so instead he needs to lure him to a more remote region, free of innocent life, where they could square off without restraint. Once again, they journey thousands of miles across the globe until soon, noxious fumes lace the troposphere, and Shadow draws his pursuer into a suitable spot. A hollow gorge carved into acres of desolate, scorched black terrain, surrounded by nothing but humongous volcanoes in the distance. Within the circumference of the hot crater, an old abandoned Eggman base lies hidden, an excavation site laden with metallic machinery, corroded pipes, and a series of interconnected rails. The hedgehogs touch down inside the summit, overlooking the vast molten complex around them before veering into a stare-off, re-evaluating each other's strategy. Sonic weighs their speed differentiation, formulating a way to outflank his opponent. Unbeknownst to him, his opponent is thinking the same thing. The battle soon resumes as Shadow arrogantly goads Sonic into making the first move. Sonic flies right up in Shadow's face, applying pressure as the latter tries to withdraw and further charge up his energy attack. Contrary to his behavior, however, Shadow has concocted another tactic, deliberately baiting the petulant blue hedgehog. Sonic cannonballs at Shadow with a supersonic spin attack, but as the spin attack makes contact, Shadow disapparates into thin air, leaving only a fading afterimage in his place. Sonic swivels around, sighting Shadow now behind him thanks to his speed and warping abilities. Seeing his opening, Shadow discharges an array of homing Chaos Lancers, which, as the name implies, zero into their target almost immediately. Alas, though more powerful than his spears, they only manage to temporarily stun Sonic. Sonic, in an effort to negate the flurry, retaliates and enunciates his own special move. Supersonic Wind! Sonic lobs his leg forward into a kick, and a fin-like energy projection is flung from the resulting swing. As the howling blade cleaves through the Chaos Lances, Shadow crosses his arms into an X just in time, blocking and shattering it. Now, hand to hand, the duo start to absolutely bulldoze their way through the installation, smashing through walkways and demolishing its infrastructure. Sonic and Shadow fly and collide with each other in swift repetition. They streak about the murky haze like airborne threads of light, each of them trying to deliver that critical hit, but stonewalled by how evenly matched they are in their super super states. Their impacts grow more rampant than before, and the resulting shockwaves more frighteningly destructive. The magnitude of their melee is so catastrophic that it feels like the planet itself is shaking. The derelict facility is falling apart at the seams. The charred rocky ground splits into deep crevices, stirring up the bubbling volatile liquids flowing beneath the crust. As they battle on, fully absorbed in their duel, gigantic columns of magma begin to spew from the ground below. In the final seconds, Sonic and Shadow see the mayhem unfolding around them, and then, with one last quake, a giant seismic swell churns forth, and the entire zone goes up in flames, decimated by the mother of all eruptions. The super hedgehogs are caught up in the blast and carried aloft by the geyser, out of the crater and back into the sky. The lava dissipates into hot ash and pyroclastic debris as the force of the explosion fires Supersonic and Shadow tens of thousands of feet into the stratosphere, allowing both to eventually regain their bearings and maintain their course upwards, leaving the planet entirely and launching out into space. With only the cold emptiness encompassing them, the match cranks its way into overdrive. They impact one another in ball form, ricocheting about in hysteria. The black comet looms in the background as Sonic and Shadow orbit back across the world, drifting over the Black Arms drop zone, the red hurricane enveloping a portion of the globe below them. Now more than 100,000 kilometers away from the war taking place under them, the cosmic out-of-this-world battle reaches its climax. As they clash one last time, Sonic puts some distance between him and Shadow. Now draining through the last deposits of his energy, both he and Shadow are running on fumes. Aware of this fact, Sonic attempts one more approach. He's not sure if he can do it, and it's not the win he wanted, but it's now his best chance of triumphing. With immense concentration, Supersonic evokes a glowing ball of light billowing out of his hand. Shadow, no stranger to the technique, instantly knows what that is. It's Chaos Control. The same type of super Chaos Control they used to stop the falling space colony Ark, and the same type Shadow used to bring the Black Comet from Earth to here. Due to the power stalemate between them, Sonic is making an all-out effort to send Shadow into parts unknown, far off into space or another dimension entirely. Sonic's mind and body have begun learning, growing stronger and reawakening his forgotten repertoire of abilities, like how he reawoke the ability to turn super. And as shown in SA2, he is a dangerously fast learner. Realizing that Sonic intends to use the maximum efficiency of the skill, Shadow molds his own, electing that the only way to stop that level of chaos control is to counter it and snuff it out. From a distance apart, they rocket towards each other, each with their arm lengthened out. Both parties intensely enunciate the word chaos as the orbs of electrified energy fill their clenched fists. History has well and truly repeated itself here. Supersonic and Super Shadow, a joint chaos control in space. These are the foundations that paved the way for this entire what if, and now here we are. Come full circle. But before they can make contact, before their chaos controls are carried out, their clenched fingers go limber and the energy melts away. In a somewhat anticlimactic instant, both Sonic and Shadow's bodies grow rigid, their eyes heavy, slipping into near unconsciousness. Due to the scale of their engagement, they essentially went a bit too far, more than a super form typically had to handle. Remember how in Sonic Unleashed, Supersonic passed out after his battle with Dark Gaia? Well, this fight between him and Black Shadow is even more taxing than that. They were already borderlining the Super's timeout, but their attempts at chaos control is officially the straw that's broke the camel's back. Wearied and unable to move, they are sent slamming into each other mid-flight before descending lower and being caught up in the planet's gravity. The two of them topple further and further, igniting like meteorites as they re-enter the atmosphere. Still barely cognizant, they fall headlong, plummeting downwards as the yellow hue tinging their fur begins to twitch and fade. Far below, on the surface of Frontier Canyon, the Black Alien and Sonic Android warfare is still heavily ongoing. Eggman in the Egg Dealer does his best to coordinate his army against the unwavering Alien Legion. Meanwhile, Tails and the rest of the rundown heroes rest behind the rocks on the edges of the combat zone. Suddenly, they all look up. turning their attention to two objects perforating the vaporous sky and coursing nether in balls of fire. The inflamed Sonic and Shadow roar to the floor, hammering the battlefield in two tall plumes of splintering rock and scattering nearby black arms and androids. Two small indentures a little way away from each other are seen cast into the ground, Sonic and Shadow in each. Their super states ended, and the Chaos Emeralds vanished, their use concluded. Slowly the hedgehogs begin to rouse, each crawling and groaning out of their respective pits and heaving on their hands and knees as the war continues around them.
Right.
Both of them are shaken and dazed, not only from the overexertion of their super forms, but also the fact that the forms wore off just as they crash landed, saving them from death, but pulverizing their bodies. It was a rough landing. Down in the dirt, Shadow opens his fingers to observe a tear in his glove, exposing a harsh gash on the palm of his right hand, likely caused by a hunk of jagged stone piercing it as he touched down. Sonic also didn't come out unscathed, arguably taking the worst of the wipeouts since his face hit the rocks, not just his hand. Sonic has received a deep laceration on his forehead area, a cut running down his right brow and onto his upper eyelid, narrowly sparing him of losing the eye altogether. Now, being that this fall from space crash landing scenario seems like a callback to the beginning of this What If, I'm sure some of you are secretly hoping this might have brought Sonic's memories back. Well, you're not the only ones. Shadow's hoping for the same thing, but sadly, one look at the blue hedgehog's livid scowl debunks that prospect. He's still the same as before. Despite his pains, against all odds, the battle-damaged Sonic comes to one knee and begins to strain, trying to return to his feet and continue on. He's totally relentless. Shadow knows that if they fight in their base forms, Sonic will eventually, undoubtedly, win. This is the critical point, the moment that will define the future of Sonic's world. Shadow's plan has failed. The Chaos Emeralds are gone. Everything is falling apart. Could this really be it? Shadow slams his bloodied fist into the turf, cursing this turnabout. All he can do now is fight to the bitter end. If only he could just somehow reach into Sonic's mind and show him who he really is. If only there was some way. With that one discouraging thought, Shadow goes still, his head still facing the ground. His eyes widen, and realization adheres his face. He opens his hand, peering at the wound in his palm, inspecting it for a moment before looking forward and pinpointing the slice above Sonic's eye. Shadow recalls Black Doom's ability to puncture his mind, peering into Shadow's memories and manifests them playing out like a movie around him, bringing even the most foggy images bubbling back to the surface. This was possible due to Doom's blood connection to him, coupled with Doom's position as the mental foundation of the Black Arm's hive mind. But that position is now Black Shadow's. That nexus has been passed over to him. He is the one able to command the swarm and feel the consciousness of his drones. So now the only question is, what would happen if his blood was introduced into someone else? Shadow evaluates the notion, questioning how his blood would affect someone else or whether their immune system would simply reject it. He doesn't like the idea of contaminating a person in such a way, but there's not another moment that he can spend thinking. Shadow's immortal body will soon heal his lesion, and Sonic's almost gotten up, so while the wounds are still fresh, Shadow banishes all doubt. It's do or die time. In a last-ditch effort, Shadow cravenly arises and skates towards Sonic. The blue hedgehog prepares to evade, but before he can, Shadow warps, reappearing right in front of him, well within striking distance. Shadow lifts his right arm, snatching onto Sonic's face, driving in the palm of his hand and firmly pressing his hand wound into Sonic's head wound. In a heartbeat of a moment, the would-be transfusion takes place. Shadow's potent mutated blood mixes into Sonic's, and the polymorphic components of his Black Arm's DNA pass over and take hold. Shadow focuses his mind, and then, with a fervent yell, he shouts,
"Sonic, remember who you are!"
With that imposition, an indescribable sensation washes over Sonic as his pupils dilate and his facial features fall deadpanned in a trance-like state. From his perspective, the world around him becomes engulfed in blood-red light, and Shadow evaporates into it. As the light fades, Sonic finds himself viewing a series of unfamiliar scenery and events, flipping from one scenario to the next like a psychosomatic picture show. Once again, Sonic's headaches return, worse than before. As he toils, he bears witness to his former happy-go-lucky self. His life flashes before his very eyes, showcasing his adventures, his battles, and the tender moments he shared with those he called friends. Shadow is flinging Sonic through an information superhighway, sending him on a spirit quest to live and learn his past like he's there once again. However, as we know, Sonic's mind is incredibly fortuitous, able to resist things like the corruption of Dark Gaia and other forms of mental invasion. Thus, Shadow labors hard against the Hedgehog's neural defenses, fighting through the barriers of his mind and piecing together his unstable psyche one fragment at a time. Implicit memories correlate into vivid apparitions, and Sonic cries out, overcome by the strong emotional significance these experiences seem to carry. Subsequently, at the peak of the sweltering pain emanating from his neocortex, something snaps inside. The pain gives way to the feeling of a cool summer's breeze, and with it, Sonic's journey through memory lane comes to an end. Back in reality, no more than 5 seconds have elapsed. Black Shadow releases Sonic's skull and falls backwards, momentarily collapsing in disorientation. As he shakes away the lightheadedness, Shadow raises his head and sees Sonic standing over him with a vacant expression. But instead of attacking, Sonic extends his arm, and an open hand reaches down to Shadow's aid. You never gave up on me, even when I wasn't me. Man, I can't believe I ever called you Faker. You're the realest hedgehog there is. He's back. With reborn recollection, the true Sonic the Hedgehog has returned. His steadfast heart of gold now reopened, his alliance to the Eggman Empire over. With a helping hand, Sonic pulls Shadow back to his feet. The two hedgehogs reunite as comrades for the first time since the incident on the Ark, merrily socializing despite the pandemonium ensuing thereabouts. But evidently, this isn't the time for idle chit-chat. There's still one thing left to do. Their bliss turns to steeliness as Sonic and Shadow synchronously turn to the front lines, right in the direction of Dr. Eggman and the main force of Sonic androids. A rare fury flourishes into the Blue Blur's eyes. He remembers everything that's transpired during his amnesia, how he was vilified by the Doctor's deception, and how close he came to slaying his friends. Well, suffice it to say, he's not happy. From the egg dealer, the onlooking Doctor, seeing his well-spun web come undone, shouts in ballistic despair, recalling the androids back onto one side of the battlefield to defend him. To reciprocate, Black Shadow telepathically orders his Black Arms foot soldiers to pull back and spread out, withdrawing to the far edges of the canyon, encircling the outer region. This isn't a retreat, no, this is a boxing maneuver. Sonic and Shadow aren't trapped in with the androids. The Sonic androids are trapped in with them. Thanks to their respective healing factors, Sonic and Shadow have just enough stamina left to take them on and end this madness once and for all. A great distance off, the heroes are filled with hope as they spot Sonic, stood aside Shadow, chattering amongst themselves that their friend has possibly been restored to his former self. With zeal, Sonic and Shadow march toward the android mass in a riled, intimidating fashion, their pace briskly building into a breakneck sprint. On the opposing side, the Sonic androids line up next to each other, forming a protective blockade around the egg dealer, a barricade of bodies. By the hundreds, the rest of the replicants charge full pelt at the oncoming hedgehogs. However, this all-out rush is in vain. Sonic and Shadow's bodies have learned from their battle, and now they're stronger than ever before. Summoning their reserves of residual energy, the sound barrier breaks in a deafening boom as the two of them perform a double boost, breaking into ultra-rapid speeds, quickly plowing through wave after wave of Sonic androids and blowing their mechanical bodies to shreds with ease. A cavalcade of mangled bodies bounce off of their boost field as Sonic and Shadow drift and zigzag across the landscape, shaving off innumerable amounts of the synthetic monsters. The pair are hell-bent on wiping out every single one of these androids. Not a single one can remain if they intend to undo the future that Silver warned them of. They push their boost to its limits, their overwhelming velocity stirring up a huge trail of gravel and grit. Tails, Amy, and the other heroes look on in astonishment as the smokescreen engulfs the entire area and only echoes of conflict carry through from the center. Mere minutes later, the explosive sounds abruptly draw to a halt. The cast watch in silence as the red clouds polluting the sky divide and disperse, illuminating the wasteland with the warmth of the sunset as the dust casts down and the victors are revealed. Side by side, Sonic and Shadow are led flat out on their backs, panting in exhaustion. It looks as if they've been defeated, but only at first. As the dust settles further, all around them we see what remains of the Sonic Android army, and by remains, I mean literal remains. A few dismembered legs here, a few severed heads there, a field of blue bionic parts spanning several kilometers of the canyon. It was a massacre.
Okay.
None of the androids were left standing. They've all been destroyed. It's finally over. From a distance away, the rest of the heroes relinquish their hiding spots and come hightailing it towards them in gleeful frenzy. The two hedgehogs are carefully helped to their feet, their legs barely holding them up. However, before Sonic can even say hey, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy tightly embrace him, no longer able to maintain their strong-willed facade. Shadow smiles, as does Rouge, Silver, and the rest of them, all silently watching the touching moment unfold. Sonic, relieved that the worst didn't happen, promptly offers his heartfelt apologies, not just to Tails and the gang, but everyone, for all the trouble he's caused, for hurting them, for everything. But all of that has been breathlessly swept under the rug. It wasn't his fault. They're just so happy that he's back to his old self. During the course of celebrations, the cast note that it feels like they're forgetting someone. That's when they realize Metal Sonic is nowhere to be found. The last they saw him, he was led inactive on the battlefield, leading them to suspect that he might have been destroyed during Sonic and Shadow's combined rampage. However, Tails has a feeling that that isn't the case. He believes it's more likely that Metal covertly fled the scene once Sonic had regained his memories. After all, the only reason Metal allied with them at all was to overthrow Sonic and the Sonic androids, reclaiming his position as Eggman's right hand. His motives were purely self-serving, though it seems Metal calculated the prospect of the Doctor being thwarted, and so he's chosen to lay low for now and return to his creator at a later date. Given the condition he's probably in, and after being pulverized by his organic counterpart, he's a minimal threat. He'll turn up eventually, and the heroes will deal with him if and when he does. As the talks of Metal go on, Shadow quietly warps a short distance off to tend to another lingering loose end, the final act that will lay this saga to rest. Out across the turf, among the heaps of dead droids, the egg dealer sits overturned and inoperable, its legs severed, and its ovoid body awash with fumes and sparks. Lying next to the mech is Dr. Eggman, throwing an inaudible tantrum over losing both the Sonic androids and the real Blue Pest. His perfectly formulated plan has been pulled right out from under him. All he can do now is take his leave and figure out his next move. But as Eggman crawls sorrowfully, endeavoring to slip away unnoticed, Black Shadow steps in his way, and the Doctor leaps back onto his rear in fright. Shadow's fiery eyes bore into him with a look of angered revulsion. All of this was the Doctor's doing. Eggman pleads, begging Shadow for forgiveness and solemnly pledging to reform from this day on. Shadow sees right through these hollow words. This obstinate fool will never change his evil ways. Thus, he cannot be allowed to go on. Shadow lifts his hand, preparing to bring it down in a chopping motion. One stroke is all it will take. Goodbye, Doctor! But before Shadow can enact his retribution, a voice calls out to him, stalling his axe-like hand. Shadow, wait! Don't do it! Sonic comes dashing over and implores Shadow to reconsider. Despite all the Doctor's done and the known threat he poses to the future, Sonic still wants to spare his life. The cast watch as the frustration builds on, and the Black Hedgehog unabashedly disputes Sonic's plea. I can't believe what I'm hearing. He used you. He used me. And after all this, you still want to let him get away with it? Why? I don't resent you for wanting revenge. Really, I get it. But this, it's not what I want. And I don't think Maria would have wanted it either. Don't you put that on me. Shadow, if I let you do this, Would I really be the same Sonic you fought to bring back? After everything that's happened, Sonic's strong moral principles have persevered. He doesn't wish death on anyone, not even his sworn enemy. And while it may seem gravely senseless to someone like Shadow, Sonic's righteousness just can't condone it. That's not the way justice should be served to him. Everyone, even the most unlikely candidates, deserve a chance at redemption. He'll do anything to uphold that belief, out of respect for the Hedgehog's righteousness, a righteousness he may never truly understand. Shadow yields, lowering his hand and desisting, but only under one condition. Shadow refuses to hand Eggman over to Sonic or the world's authorities. The most they'll do is throw him in a cell somewhere, but that's not good enough for him. With Metal Sonic still on the loose, there's no guarantee that the Doctor won't simply make his escape, and then this whole thing starts all over again. Shadow intends to break this perpetual cycle and usher in a true era of peace. But beyond all that, he feels some personal responsibility for Eggman. Like it or not, this blubbery fiend is Gerald's grandson. He's regrettably family. For Shadow, surrogate son to the Professor, this burden is his and his alone. Decidedly, Shadow states that he'll be taking the Doctor into custody aboard the Black Comet, departing and taking him with him where he can do no harm, kept an eye on by hundreds of ravenous black creatures, eager to feast on his flesh if he so much as breathes in a way that offends their master. Eggman, no doubt disturbed by this sentence, makes a raving appeal to Sonic.
Sonic, you can't do this to me. You can't condemn me like this. I saved you, remember? The only reason you're alive is because I found you and nursed you back to health.
Ignoring Eggman's rasped attempts to bargain his way out, Sonic agrees to the terms and turns over Eggman into Shadow's supervision. However, Sonic's concern is more veered towards the offhanded announcement that Shadow's just made. He's leaving? Sonic quickly questions him on this decision, expressing his hope for Shadow to remain here. When asked why, Black Shadow points to the Black Arms creatures, each of them lined up like statues around the margins of the canyon, awaiting orders. Shadow proceeds to go into detail about these unfeeling organisms, summarizing the destruction they brought upon the Earth and the events that led him to take control of them and bring them here. While Shadow had initially considered destroying them after their use had ended, he can't ignore the sign of providence at play here.
You don't feel that?
In an ironic twist of fate, both the Black Aliens and Black Doom's blood were imperative to not only winning this war, but also saving Sonic. Due to this, Shadow has re-evaluated their fate. He instead recognizes the utility of the Black Arms and wonders what purpose they could serve elsewhere. He's by no means attempting to rehabilitate them or something like that. The Black Arms are fundamentally monstrous. That's just their nature.
Right.
But if that monstrousness could be regulated, perhaps it could be used to do some good. A blunt instrument kept firmly underhand, a rabid dog that only attacks at its master's say-so. To that end, the indomitable Shadow has decided to remain in command of this interstellar covenant, which ultimately means sacrificing the possibility of residing here. There's no way this plague could remain on Sonic's world or any other world. The only place for them is adrift amidst the cold emptiness, just as they always have been. And with Shadow at the helm, perhaps their venture could right some of the wrongs the Black Arms have caused in the past. Sonic wants to persuade Shadow out of his conviction, but one look at him tells the Blue Hedgehog that he's already made up his mind. Despite grievances, Sonic can't help but admire Shadow's volition. This is the path he has chosen, not a path forced onto him. Time marches on, and after some further conversing, Shadow prepares to take his leave. The heroes gather to see him off, each of them expressing their thanks. Tails and Knuckles offer farewells to their friend. Amy energetically hugs him, and Silver voices the immeasurable debt the world owes him for rewriting the nightmare that could have been tomorrow. Finally, Shadow turns to Sonic, who'd remained silently conflicted during the send-off. Sonic's mouth opens speechlessly, trying to muster a sentence that encompasses the magnitude of what his dark lookalike has done for him since he fell to Earth. But as he tardily shapes the words he needs, Shadow just lifts his palm and cuts him off, simply smiling as if to say, no words are needed. Instead, Shadow reaches around his back, and from within his cloak he presents Sonic with a parting gift. In his outreached hand is a peculiar device, a piece of Black Arm's technology resembling that of a pager or intercom that Shadow had priorly prepared for this occasion.
Oh,
This is a
shit, they
homing
about to be-
beacon.
Okay.
It's connected to the Black
about
Arm's
to be
hive
connected.
mind in the same way as the Black Comet. If it's activated, I'll know. If something happens, or if you or the others need me, you simply need press this button, and I'll return as quickly as I can. Sonic's eyes light up as he takes hold of the device, recognizing that this keepsake doesn't represent a permanent goodbye, just another avenue until their roads intertwine once more. Their time drawing to a close, Shadow requests that Sonic watch over the humans in his stead. Sonic wholeheartedly accepts the role of Guardian,
Beautiful.
giving his word that he'll take care of everything from here on out. As the sun sets on both the land and their story, Sonic imparts his well wishes, conveying the use of an appropriate adage as a fond callback to the promises they've both made. Well, sayonara, Shadow. Dr. Eggman is forcefully apprehended by the Black Arms soldiers and dragged away for incarceration as Black Shadow, giving one last wave, turns to shepherd his forces back onto the comet. Soon, in the void above Sonic's world, the asteroidical vessel pulls back, revolves, and gradually drifts away, slinking into the darkness of space from whence it came. Back on the ground, the cast look to the emerging stars. There's still work to do, but now everything is as it was, better than it was. Tomorrow is a new day, a day free from the tyranny of Eggman and a future brighter than before. Sonic strokes the scar atop his eye, deeming it not a grim reminder of his wicked self, but rather a memento to remind him of the efforts made to bring him back from the brink. His memories lost no longer, and his intrepid soul stronger than ever, Sonic grins, looking forward to when he'll see Shadow again. And that's where What If Sonic Lost His Memory ends. So, what did you guys think?
Fire video, it's a fire series. Yeah, the finale, this is fire. The Shadow and Sonic thing, so I love it. I like the way he get the fight, the power he used to get the memory back. I love it, man. It's a good fire story. Let me know what y'all think down below. Let me know what else you want me to watch. Check out the last chapter right here. Check out another video you might like right here, and I'll catch y'all next time, man. Shout out to Sega Scourge for all this work, and peace.